every atom. The Lord resides in every atom. So that's the all-pervasive. So there's the all-pervasive, the impersonal conception of the Lord. Then there's the super-soul, the localized perception of the Lord, and then of course there's Bhagavan, personal perception of the Lord. So at the beginning of the Bhagavatam 1-10 is described 1-10. Vedanti tat tattvam vidas tattvam vidyashyan madvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shantate. That this non-dual substance, the absolute truth, is described in three phases: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So yes, Brahman is there, the Brahman aspect is there. Krishna is everywhere. He's in every atom. He's in everything. And at the same time, everything is in him. Which maybe is more easy to understand if someone or something is at one point in everything, and then a little later everything is in him. But simultaneously, everything is in the Lord, and the Lord is in everything. So not only is he greater than the greatest, bigger than the biggest, but at the same time, he's smaller than the smallest. So, to get your head around that, but that's Krishna. So for some people that will affect their faith, that will limit their faith, because I can't get my head around this. This is ununderstandable. This doesn't make any sense to the logical mind. But for the devotee, when they see these kind of statements, this is Krishna. The fact is that I can't understand Krishna, and that's part of what makes him God. That's part of what makes him great. My teeny weeny mind can't understand him, and that's part of the concept of God. So yes, Krishna says in the Gita, Janma Karma Chami Divyam Evam Yoga Kitadata Dyakta Deham Punarjanma Naiti Mamiti Svajana. So one who understands in truth the nature of Krishna's birth and activities, he doesn't have to come back. So we have to understand Krishna, or at least attempt to understand Krishna, but we should also know and understand that there's a degree, there's a degree to which we can understand him. Our attempt has to be there, the sincere attempt has to be there, and Krishna will reveal himself to the degree that we are trying, we're attempting to understand him, but we can never understand him in full, because he's Krishna, he's unfathomable. So like the frog in the well, such a small conception of reality. So, so he's living in the well all his life. Someone comes to him and says, why don't you go to the ocean? And he says, which ocean? What do you mean ocean? What's an ocean? So he says, ocean is big, huge, so much water, so much fun you can have in the ocean. So he said, what do you mean big? How big is the ocean? He's in a 3x2 well. So then they say, okay, the ocean is big. How big is the ocean? Maybe it's 4x6. He says, no, much bigger. How much bigger? 8x10 maybe. That's all he can imagine, because he's a frog in the well. He has such a limited conception of reality. Imagine if an ant is crawling around on your arm. For the ant, your hairs on the arm are like trees. And this body that he's walking around on, it's a huge mass. Because the ant's conception of reality is very, very limited. We're looking down on the ant and thinking, poor little thing, what is this? Such an insignificant living entity. Such a small conception of what's possible, of what's real. In the same way we're ants. And of course, modern scientists and so on, they're trying to figure everything out and coming up with all sorts of theories. It makes me laugh when they have these models of dinosaurs. And they say this dinosaur is called the T-Rex and it existed 420 million years ago. And they have these videos of how it walks around and what it eats and what it does. It's utter speculation. All they have is some fossils. And they make up this whole story of what it did, how it lived, when it lived. And it's just so speculative. And people fall for it. People fall for it. So our real conception of reality is very, very limited, but we have to try to understand Krishna. So part of understanding Krishna is to see, yes, Krishna is everywhere. Absolutely. And therefore, when a devotee engages with anything in the world, he treats it with great respect. Everything is Krishna's energy, and everything should be used in Krishna's service. Krishna is in every single atom. And therefore, the way a devotee engages with the world is very refined, is very sophisticated, is very conscious. Well, I said you have to be conscious before you become Krishna conscious. So the way we look at the world, Krishna is everywhere. For a devotee, Krishna is everywhere. In the Ramananda Samvada, Ramananda Rai and Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says, Ramananda Rai is in the position of being a preacher, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is hearing from him, and he says that this is the vision of a devotee. What does he say? Stavra Jangama Deki na Dekita Murti Sarvatra Boy Nature Ishta Deva Spurti. So for a great soul, for an advanced Vaishnava, he sees non-moving and non-moving living entities, but he doesn't see their external form. First and foremost, he sees Ishta Deva Spurti. He sees his Lord inside that living entity. So you see an elephant, you see a cat, you see a dog, whatever it may be. First thing he sees, my Lord is inside. Ishtadeva Spurti. So this is Bhagavan realization actually. Yes, he's seen the localized aspect of the Lord. The Lord is in all living entities. But for a Vaishnava, for someone who's Bhagavan realized, he doesn't see just four-armed Lord Narayan. He sees Krishna. He sees Krishna inside all living entities. And therefore the way he will engage with all living entities is very, very beautiful, very wonderful. So, so yes, this Mayavadi conception is there. It has a place. It has. I was just thinking about your discussion last night and this topic. Today's verse is all about the Mayavadi conception, the Brahman conception. So it has a place. There is a truth to it. But the problem is that it's not the absolute truth. It's a partial understanding of the truth. And part of the reason why Srila Prabhupada was so strong on this topic is because when you have a personal relationship with someone, so Prabhupada has a very deep, intimate bond with Krishna and the associates of Vrindavan. He's absorbed in that spiritual reality. Once Srila Prabhupada was speaking to his godbrother, Bhakti Vaibhav Goswami, and he told this to the devotees. Puri Maharaj told this to the devotees. So Srila Prabhupada explained that he was in the spiritual world, and one day Krishna came to him, and he said, please go down to this planet and preach. I want you to go there to preach. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, I don't want to go. I don't want to go there. That's a terrible place. And he kind of just looked. I said, I don't want to go there. I never want to go there. Krishna said, please, I want you to go there, be my mystery, and preach Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada was very disturbed by this idea. Why? It's because a moment of separation, when you're with Krishna, a moment of separation, just the thought of separation is such a disturbing concept. The gopis, they cursed Lord Brahma. What kind of a creator are you? What have you done? You have 4 heads. What's the point of having 4 heads? Because you've made eyes that blink. When we blink, then our vision of Krishna is lost. So it's such a terrible thing that we have to blink. Because for that nimesha, this is units of time in the Vedic conception, in the 3rd canto, 11th or 12th chapter, is calculation of time by the atom. And one of the units of time given there is the nimesha. Nimesha is the amount of time it takes to blink. It's like 1/13th of a second, 1/14th of a second. So a very short amount of time. But for this blinking, the gopis are cursing Lord Brahma. So the thought of separation, actually another thing that comes up is something called Prema Vaichitya. When Krishna is with his associates in the spiritual world, sometimes, for example, when he's with Srimati Radharani, Krishna's there. They're together. But Srimati Radharani is so absorbed in the thought that Krishna will go and they'll be separated, that she begins to think that he's gone, even though he's sitting right there in front of her. And then she starts getting she's so pained and so bewildered because she thinks Krishna's gone. But he's right there. This is called Prema Vaishitya. So even the thought of separation is such an intense experience. So Prabhupada didn't want to come. He didn't want to be separated from Krishna. This vira, this separation is such an intense experience, but actually it's understood to be the topmost experience. Because within that separation is a deep, deep union. Because sometimes when you're away from someone, they say absence makes the heart grow fonder. So when you're away from someone, the connection with them, the remembrance of them, the bond and the union with them can be even deeper. They say familiarity breeds contempt, and absence makes the heart grow fonder. So in one sense, absence, separation is better. But at the same time, no one wants to be separated from Krishna. Yes. Even though it leads to a deeper experience, you don't want that separation. So actually, Srimati Radharani's associates, they never speak about separation to her. Because even the thought of separation brings a great pain, but within that pain is the greatest bliss. Yes, please ask.
So it's very interesting because there was so much nuance actually behind this point I was bringing up that wasn't appropriate. There wasn't actually functionally the time to address. So my comment wasn't actually about the philosophy, one, because I can't begin to even fathom speaking about it. It was actually more of a functional question, and it wasn't actually a commentary on Srila Prabhupada. It's more a commentary, since we are not Srila Prabhupada, what our engagement, how we should relate and describe these philosophies in our own preaching, specifically in regard to Maharaj's comment that Adi Shankaracharya is said to be Shiva incarnate, and Shivaji is said to be one of the topmost Vaishnavas. And so, if we are to use terminology that is perceived as offensive, wouldn't this be considered Vaishnav aparad in a very subtle way? And I'm particularly drawing on one story from Jaiva Dharma from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where he's recounting a story, I think it's Babaji Maharaj, I might be forgetting the name, where one of his disciples came to him complaining about the Mayavads. Like, this like garbage philosophy, they have impersonal conception, this Adi Shankaracharya. And the second he heard Adi Shankaracharya's name, he does dandavats and says, oh, Adi Shankaracharya ji. Like, wow, what a worshipful person. So this is a very different mood than like fools and rascals, but obviously Srila Prabhupada is situated in the spiritual domain. So it's more of a question of like, this is a different approach to us relating to this philosophy. So I'm curious, like, what that means now in 2025 for a very conditioned soul that also wants to explain the difference of impersonalism versus personalism to people.
So, just to finish, I'll just finish the point about Srila Prabhupada and why he was so strong. Is because he has such a deep relationship with Krishna. Krishna's right there for him. And therefore, when someone comes along and says, oh, it's all an illusion, and actually we're all one, and the whole point of the perfection of life is to merge into the energy and to become one with everything. That's the topmost conception, that's the goal. And actually Krishna, he's also just Maya. That will get your blood boiling.
Doesn't Bhaktivinoda Thakur say that his followers actually misunderstood Adi Shankaracharya? That the concept of oneness wasn't actually merging, that it was to become one with your spiritual purpose, which is to serve God, to serve Krishna?
Potentially.
I think it's said specifically in Jaiva Dharma.
Yeah, so that's, but if you speak to a Mayavadi,
I won't say this.
yeah. So then it's, so Srila Prabhupada was very strong on the point because he's there with Krishna. He's got such a personal relationship. So if someone says about your mother, you know, for an individual, the mother's very close to their heart. If someone says, oh, your mother doesn't really exist. You know, I remember when I was young, then if someone annoys you in school, this is in England, in London, you know, so slow class. But if someone says something bad about you, then their answer was your mom. And that was when a fight started, because no one can offend your mother. So someone says your mom, and that's it. So if someone is blaspheming your mother or minimizing your mother, then that's going to go deep. That's going to hurt, and it could elicit a strong response from an individual. So for Srila Prabhupada, it was a very personal topic. These people actually have no idea of relating to Krishna, having a connection, a deep bond with Krishna, and what a superior experience that is. And they believe that their conception is the topmost absolute truth. But it gives them access to Sat, Chitananda. So it's a very limited experience. Srila Prabhupada is saying, hey, but there's more. There's super soul conception, Paramatma, and then there's Bhagavan. There's so much more. And you can't say that this is the absolute truth. Srila Prabhupada is very strong. So then how do we, to address your question, how do we relate to this? How do we see this in 2025? I think it depends on the forum. Amongst us, amongst devotees, we reach Srila Prabhupada's purpose. Prabhupada was strong, not just with this topic. For scientists, he said, kick them kick them with boot, kick them in the head. When he speaks to Dr. Patel, if you hear the recordings, morning walks on Juhu Beach with Dr. Patel, and he's coming up with all sorts of Mayavadi arguments, Srila Prabhupada is smashing him. He's very strong. And Dr. Patel is also very challenging to Srila Prabhupada, and they really get into a debate. But then afterwards, they're friends. It's not personal. You're speaking about my Krishna. You can't speak about my Krishna like this. Therefore, Prabhupada is fired up. He's strong. It's personal. For Prabhupada, this is a personal topic, because he's speaking about someone who he has a very deep personal relationship, and therefore is strong. And so for us, I think as preachers, we have to have that in us as well. There may be a time when that approach may be appropriate, may be needed. But in a general, sort of in our general day-to-day conversations and interactions, if we're speaking to scholars and so on, or people of repute, of thinkers, etc., then we can politely express our insight, quoting Shastra, what is that Praman, etc., and present our conception and our understanding in a reasonable, polite fashion, and see where the conversation goes. So I think, time, place, and circumstance. But sometimes For example, if you're preaching in India, it's a hot topic in some places. And I grew up, like many in the room, grew up in a Hindu environment. I never knew that this was a topic. I never knew that this was a topic of debate. But it was only when I came to Krishna consciousness and I read Srila Prabhupada's purports that I understood that this is a real dichotomy and it can get quite heated. Up until then, my conception of God was a little mixed. Because sometimes you hear that, yes, God is a person, and I primarily used to relate to Krishna as a person who I had some form of relationship with, but at the same time you hear the idea that, yes, ultimately all is one. And so it's a bit of a hodgepodge, a bit of a mix. So I'm really grateful to Srila Prabhupada for opening my eyes and helping me to understand that, yes, there is this dichotomy, and there's something in between, the Brahma realization, but ultimately, and as devotees, we have to be fixed in the understanding and cultivate a connection with Bhagavan, personal aspect. And that's what Srila Prabhupada really gave to the world, that idea that yes, very clearly there is a hierarchy, and this is the deepest conception of the Lord. This is where we can have the deepest rasa, the deepest exchange, the deepest experience with the absolute truth, with divinity. And this can lead to the highest perfection of the living entity. This is where it's at. So that's Prabhupada's gift, one of his gifts to humanity. We don't ram it down people's throats. We're offering it to the world. So, yeah. And of course, we understand where it all comes from. People were taking the Vedic literatures and using it as justification to kill animals. So then Buddha comes along and says, hey, forget about the Vedas. If you're misusing them, then forget about the Vedas. This is just exploitation for people's sense gratification. Get the Vedas out of the picture. Yeah, it's basically atheism and non-violence. He just emphasized non-violence. So that was kind of a solution for the problem at that point. And then comes along, sometime later, comes Ali Shankaracharya who's saying, hey, hold on, the Vedas have value. But let's remove the personal conception, because people have this understanding that, okay, I can please Kali Ma, Shakti, I can please her by offering her a goat, for example. So take this conception away of a person, of God, the personality. Yeah, we're all one. So then he introduces Mayavadi conception, emphasized this idea that there's no personal aspect of God in the ultimate sense, but bringing the Vedas back into play. So then it all has a function within the history of evolution, of thought, and sort of the evolution of the Vedic conception as we see it. So it's there's when we see that kind of historical timeline of how things came about, it also helps us to kind of understand why things are the way they are. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater also. So then, and that's why so many great souls in history have then said, hey, hold on, you're just focusing on a few verses. You take the Bhagavad Gita and the 3 or 4 verses, like the one that Prabhupada is quoting in many people want to take this as a verse which is saying, hey, the impersonal conception is actually the truth. Look, Krishna is saying it. But then, hey, look at the other, 600 something verses, which are very clearly pointing towards the Bhagavan conception. So we have to have a rounded understanding of things. So often, this is one of Prabhupada's complaints, often what the impersonalists will do is they'll just take a quote and they'll twist it to present their understanding. But we need, just like with Prabhupada's teaching, someone will pick out one sentence or a few lines and they'll present it and say, Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said that. Everyone's got their own Prabhupada. But a mature approach is to have a rounded understanding of Prabhupada. Who is Prabhupada? What was his message? What did he want? What was his heart? So what's the essence of the Vedic literatures? What are they actually saying? What is the topmost understanding? And that's why Jiva Goswami goes to great lengths to help us to understand that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amala Puran, is the topmost evidence. Vyasadeva wrote the Vedic literatures. Of course, we know from the first canto, chapters 4, 5, 6, it explains his journey. So he wrote the Vedic literatures, wasn't satisfied. He knew that there's something wrong. I've done so much service. I've done this for humanity, for the benefit of humanity, but it's not, it doesn't hit home, it's not quiet, it doesn't feel right. And therefore, when Narayana comes, he says, write one literature, which helps these people of Kali Yuga. You've done this for the benefit of the people of Kali Yuga, but actually you'll confuse them more than anything else. Because these Vedic literatures are so broad, so vast, so many systems of yoga are there, give them one book with the essence of it. And therefore, in his maturity, in his maturity, Srila Vyasadeva wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is understood to be the essence of the Vedic literatures, a natural commentary of Vedanta Sutra, and which gives the ultimate message for the Vedic literatures. Krishna, 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 Krishna. The person. Sumangura, Canto 10, Cantos 1 to 9 are a build-up to Canto 10, which helps us to access Krishna, the Supreme Person, the ultimate conception of the Vedic literatures. So, Jiva Goswami gives this explanation in the Tattva Sandarbha in great detail that yes, Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate scripture for us as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and puts it all into context. Yeah, impersonal conception is there, super soul conception is there. Yogis will meditate on the super soul, the Lord within the heart. But ultimately, our goal is to develop or rekindle our loving, devotional, reciprocal relationship with Krishna. Any other thoughts? Yes,
so, you are explaining this, even the thought of separation when Radharani is in union with Krishna brings greatest distress.
Yes.
But this conception again and again it is emphasized that Vipulamba Seva is more intense and more relishable than
Yes.
Vilamsam. So, but in spiritual world they are eternally together all the time. How do we understand this?
They're together, but they're not together. Because the day, if you look at the day, Krishna's day, it's a constant union and separation. Union and separation. And so what is Krishna's day? Krishna goes, he wakes up in the morning, sees his parents, he goes to milk the cows, milks the cows, comes back, bathes, has breakfast, and then he says bye. So this is a period with his parents. Parents are happy. But when they're leaving, when he's leaving, then it takes a long time to leave. Because Mother Yashoda just won't let him go. Nanda Raj is there just watching him and trying to make him stay. And she's fussing over him, fixing his hair, looking, oh my God, look, you're not wearing shoes. All of the thorns and the pebbles in the forest, your feet will get hurt. She's fussing over him, she doesn't want him to go, but he goes. And they're pained by separation. And in one sense, that separation is even deeper than, because for us, Krishna can be so far away, so the living entity may be justified in having a deeper feeling of separation, because hey, at least they get to see him. at least Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj get to see him. But we're so far away. But no, for them, sometimes when you're closer to someone, and when you have regular contact, it renews and refreshes that connection on a regular basis, then the attachment is deeper, and when attachment is deeper, then the experience of separation is deeper. So, look at this picture. Mother Yashoda is greeting Krishna. She's so happy to see him because he's come back home after herding the cows. So during the day, Krishna's with the cowherd boys. He's with the calves, or the cows, and they're also blissful. But when it comes to the end of the day and they have to separate, then the cowherd boys are in tears. They're so happy, so jolly, they're carefree. But when it comes to the point of separation from Krishna at the end of the day, around 6 o'clock, they're so pained. But then Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj is so blissful again, because Krishna's back home. And then they have some time, Krishna bathes, they have dinner, prashadam, then there's some entertainment, and then in the evening they begin to wind down, and Krishna rests. Or so it seems. He pretends to rest when Mother Yashoda leaves, and he sneaks out, and he meets the gopis. So like that, everyone is experiencing separation. There's only one time where they're all with Krishna, Govardhan Leela. For 7 days and 7 nights, everyone is blissful, because it's the first time and the last time that everyone is together constantly. Everyone can see Krishna constantly. 7 full days, and they're so blissful. At the same time, it's also very frustrating, because Krishna's there busy holding the golden hill. So then Mother Yashoda can't, follow Krishna in the same way. Although they're the most satisfied, Nanda and Yashoda are the most satisfied during this period. But the cowherd boys, they want to wrestle with Krishna. They want to go out and herd the cows, but they can't. And the gopis, they're allowed to look at Krishna. Because usually in public, they're not looking. They're shy. They don't want to be seen looking. But everyone's eyes are fixated on Krishna during Govardhan Leela, so they're also allowed to look at Krishna. But they want to do more than just look at Krishna. They want to have pastime, they want to dance and so on. So they can't do that. So there's separation, so there's union. Even during Govardhan Leela, there's union. But within that union, there's also separation. So the separation union is a constant interplay in Krishna's pastimes. But Rupa Goswami says that it's like separation is like salt in water.
Okay.
Like the ocean water has salt in. What does that mean? Salt keeps the water fresh. If there's no salt, then the water becomes stagnant. So separation plays this role of keeping the water or keeping the pastimes fresh. And we see this. We see this even in a normal relationship. We see that if you look at marriage counseling, they're advised, don't spend too much time together. Yeah. The man should have his own hobbies and friends, and the woman should have their own hobbies and friends. Some separation should be there. You shouldn't spend too much time together. In the same way, in the Vedic conception, then the woman will move into the man's house with the in-laws, etc. Srimati Radharani does the same. But she also goes back to her parents' home on a regular basis to have the love and the comfort of her own home, of her parents' home. And at the same time, it creates a bit of distance. And then when there's union again, then things are fresh. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Yes?
So actually, my question was, what all you're describing is in Gokul Vrindavan.
Yes.
In Golok, they're always...
No, same in Golok.
So is this... but here
Krishna's pastimes are the same?
Same Ashtakarya Leela, same thing.
Same.
So night happens, they
Of course. Yes. Otherwise, yeah, it's all there. It's all there.
I heard there, whatever he wants, it appears because there's no time. The thing doesn't go like that. So whenever he wants,
There
day,
is
it
time.
comes.
There is time. Otherwise, there's no God. There's Ashtakali that's taking place. So there is time. And Krishna is very time specific. He's not like ISKCON. ISKCON timing. No, Krishna is very specific. So Krishna's Ashtakal, so the times, I won't go through everything in detail, but from 6 to 8:24 a.m. is one set of pastimes. 8:24 to 10:48 next. 2 hours 24-minute camps. 10:48 to 3:36, that's 2 times 2 hours 24 minutes. 4 hours 48 minutes. So 10:48 till 3:36. Not 3:37, not 3:35, 3:36. Very specific. 3:36 until 6. 6 p.m. till 8:24 p.m. 8:24 p.m. to 10:48 p.m. And then again 10:48 p.m. to 3:36 a.m. And then 3:36 a.m. to 6 a.m. This is Krishna's day. Very time specific. So God is there. Time is there. But it's not binding. It's binding for us. I wish I could go back to 2 hours ago and chant better rounds. But I can't. Stop. Kind and tide, wait for no man. Yeah, this is Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, Prabhupada quotes it in the 3rd canto, 3rd book. So time and tide wait for no man. Time is binding. Chanakya Pandit says, Ayusha Kshana Ekopi Nalabhya Svarna Koti Vi. You can have 1,000,000 gold coins, but you can't buy back a second. Yeah, as time is binding. For Krishna, time is not binding. Yeah. So time works to facilitate his pastimes. For example, if Krishna is late to be somewhere, if he gets caught up with one associate and he has to be somewhere else for another appointment, then the lotus of Vraj is described that it contracts. If in today's pastime, if the idea is that Krishna should be on time and he's late, then the lotus of Vraj contracts. So the distances become shorter, so that he can get there quicker. However, if he's on time, but the pastime dictates that today he should be late, because then Radharani will be upset, then the lotus of Vrindavan expands. So then it takes him longer to get there. So then he's late, and then Radharani is in Man, and then he has to make it up to her. So then everything is there to facilitate Krishna's pastimes. We're bound, we're in prison. Krishna's free. Krishna's free, Swatantra, independent. And everything is there to facilitate him. But he's not in charge. He's not in charge of all of this. Sometimes when you see really rich people, or very influential people, they don't want to be in charge anymore. It's someone who's weak wants control, wants to be in charge, wants to have the influence, and wants everyone to know I'm in charge. Someone who has that self-confidence, someone who's naturally a leader, they don't want to be in charge. They don't have to show it to anyone. So for Krishna, he puts other people in charge. He even puts other people in charge of his life and his activities. So Yogamaya is the one where she directs all the pastimes, and he's happy for her to be the film director, and he's just a part in the play. He likes it that way. He wants Krishna, he wants Arjuna to be glorified. So he says, Nimitta Matram Bhavisya Sachin. All of this is going to happen. It's my will. But I want you to be glorified and therefore become my instrument. He wants all of us to be glorified. He wants all of us to be his instruments. So he's very happy to share the fame, to share the power, to share the control, because he's healthy. He's a healthy leader. So it's beautiful. So many things we can learn also. I think does it make sense?
Yeah, so in the sense that the same whatever happens in Gokul for 16-year-old Krishna, same thing happens in Golok for 60, same thing. Because I heard the childhood pastime, the Adbhut Leela doesn't happen there.
So there are some differences. So for example, in the spiritual world, are there demons? in the spiritual world.
No.
So there's the thought of demons, there's a conception of demons, there's a memory in the consciousness that there were demons and they were dangerous and Krishna slayed them. So those thoughts are there, the memory is there, the conception is there. But how can the demonic mentality be there in Goloka Vrindavan? But in Gokul, yes. So there are some differences, but generally, many of the principles are the same.
Okay. Because this Damodar Leela, Govardhan Leela, all this happens in Gokul only,
Sure.
right?
No,
Not
no,
in
why?
Golok also.
There it happens.
Okay.
Happens.
Because this is baby Krishna and there it is 16-year-old Krishna.
So, yeah, so of course, Krishna is eternally 16 years old, but at the same time, very difficult for us to understand because we live in a space where there's linear time and things happen from one to the next to the next. We grow. I wish I could be 20 again, but I can't. It doesn't work like that. But for Krishna, all of these pastimes are happening simultaneously. There is the eternal present. Difficult to get around. But in Krishna's pastimes, Goloka Vrindavan, there's the eternal present. So all of these things are happening simultaneously. All of these pastimes happening simultaneously. There's different, what is it, 3D, 4D, different dimensions. Yes, different dimensions. So then, I was saying why Vishnu Thakur speaks about this, that see in Goloka Vrindavan, things are medium-sized. You think medium-sized. Everything is medium-sized. It's not too small and not too big. Because if things are too big, then opulence takes over. When you have a big group of people, a big hall, lots of prasad, it brings this mood of grandeur. It brings this mood of expanse, of bigness, hugeness, and opulence comes in. But in Vrindavan, sweetness prevails, madhurya. And sweetness means medium. Medium. Too small, not enough people, it's kind of a little limited. You can't really have this exuberant madhurya, sweetness. So not too big, not too small, things are described as medium-sized. So then, but then it's described as 80 billion gopis in the rasa dance. That's pretty big. So if you have a rasa dance of 80 billion gopis, and each of them feels that Krishna is with them. So each of them has had the experience, and it's all about the experience at the end of the day. So if each of them has the experience that Krishna is with them, then you have 160 billion participants. It's a lot of people. That's too big to maintain the sweetness. It's like when Srila Prabhupada started the movement, the devotees who were there, they say that it was so sweet with Srila Prabhupada. But when things started to expand and grow and become bigger, then that sweetness goes away, dissipates. Because when things grow in size, sweetness reduces. So that's why it's medium-sized. So then how does that work? How can you have 80 billion in the rasa dance and maintain the sweetness of the medium size? There's many dimensions. There's many dimensions.
Okay.
So time, space is another conception to what we're used to here. And therefore it's difficult for us to really get our head around it. I'm speaking about it, I've read about it, and I've heard about it, and therefore I'm repeating. But do I really understand? Difficult to really understand. And therefore, hey, we've got to go there. We've got to go there and experience it.
So it's simultaneously happening at
Simultaneous.
But adhering to the time of the Leela.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Time is not binding.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Time facilitates.
just like Maharaj's comments last night, these are just blowing my mind, so thank you. The question, to tie it back to the verse in our initial discussion, my limited understanding is, and it's really a question of free will and how it relates to this journey of the soul. My understanding at a very low level is that the free will is present so that the love can be genuine. Is this correct?
Yes.
Okay. So as you beautifully laid out, and it was laid out in Jaiva Dharma, this, when we talk about the landscape of the journey from sacrificing, slaughtering cows in the name of sacrifice out of rote, like performance of ritual, and then Buddhaji coming and kind of resetting, rebalancing the scale, and then Adi Shankaracharya coming and then reintroducing the Vedas and aspects of God consciousness, and you establish this hierarchy very clearly that it leads in Bhagavan, the personal form of Sri Krishna. But since free will is also present, and since none of these entities are separable from God, Buddhaji, Adi Shankaracharya, do they serve a purpose for a soul on their vaster spiritual journey that might be beyond comprehension? And one might argue, well, why not just take the elevator? If somebody tells you about Bhagavan realization, just go to it. But for some, like myself, maybe because of past conditioning, material attachments, whatever it may be, it almost feels like intimidating, possibly because it challenges my ego, or the sense, it actually truly humbles me, because it's like, well, if God is real in a personal form, then the purpose of life is not to satisfy my desires. But in the vaster journey of, let's say, my soul, that is there some utility in ascribing maybe to a philosophy that is intermediary, with the knowledge that it's not the end, but it's also very dangerous, because when one starts to do this, we see very clearly in our Shastra that it says don't spend any time in impersonalist or voidist schools of thought. And then so functionally, I'm just trying to understand, but if it's also supposed to be a choice, and what if someone's not ready? And then from a material standpoint, what does it mean to then not spend time in other faith traditions? I know there's a lot in this question, but anything you can speak to about how free will kind of fits into this would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, Mayavadi Bhashya Shunile Vai Sarvanash. Everything's destroyed if you hear from a Mayavadi. So, see, there's various reasons why an individual may be attracted to this Mayavadi conception. One reason Srila Prabhupada explains is that if an individual has been hurt by people a lot over a period of time, then the concept of people, a person, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about people. People just cause me pain. People just get in my way. They hurt me. They say things. They do things that just bring me pain and suffering. I don't want to be around people. So then when they come along and say, hey, God is a person, and you've got to surrender to him, then intrinsically, internally, there's something inside you, there's a resistance to surrendering to the person, God. And therefore, hey, I prefer the impersonal idea. That looks much safer. That feels like something I can digest. But just because people of this world have hurt us and so on, Krishna is different. So then there may be various reasons why an individual may feel this way towards the personal conception. One is what you mentioned, to let go of that control and so on. Another is the pain that we've experienced from people. So there may be various reasons. Okay, so still it's connected to the Vedas, and it's a rung on the ladder. Brahma, Parama, Bhagavan. So there is some justification. At the same time, Prabhupada was very, he was urgent, basically. Say, now you've got the opportunity. You're here, you've got the human form of life, Ataka Brahma Jigyasa, you have the ability to think and question and ask why. Use this opportunity. This is really a Prabhupada saying, now is your opportunity. And they repeat this. And it's powerful. Prabhupada is saying, now is your opportunity. So he had this urgency, saying, don't mess around. Just let go of everything. And this is the movement that he created, actually. If you look at the initial days, the initial period, the 60s and 70s, there was this urgency. Prabhupada writes in one purport that if the house is on fire, even if you speak different languages, even if you can't communicate, somehow you'll get the message across. Get out. And now, there's no time to waste. Don't mess around. Let's go. We've got to get out of it. This is an emergency. So Prabhupada brought that mood. He's saying, now you've come in touch with Krishna. You have everything laid out on a plate. Just give your life to Krishna. Surrender to Krishna. Serve him. Get through all of the obstacles. And if you look at the people, the lifestyle they were living at that time, sex, drugs, rock and roll, Prabhupada said, give it all up. He inspired them to give it all up, whatever it was, internal, external, all of the blockages and barriers, and just take shelter. But even a devotee, even someone who has surrendered to Krishna, still some Mayavadi conceptions there. In the heart. Srila Prabhupada also says that the tendency to want to enjoy, that's also Mayavadi conception. Why? It's because Ekale Ishvara Krishna Aras there's one Krishna, everyone else is his servant. And therefore, if we try to take the position of being the enjoyer, then it's like we're equating ourselves to Krishna. Mayavadi conception. And so therefore it's very pernicious, it's very ingrained, and the ultimate satisfaction, as Maharaj said yesterday, to really be a servant, to be a Vidya, to really be Krishna's Vidya, to really be a servant of Krishna. And that is where we'll find Yayatma Suprasiddhi. The Bhagavatam explains that this is where we really find satisfaction. Another beautiful verse from Prahlad Maharaj. He says, Sukhaya Dukhamokshaya Sankalpa Karna. The moment we try to enjoy in this world, 7742 Bhagavatam, the moment we try to enjoy, that is when our suffering begins. Powerful, strong, disturbing. The moment we try to enjoy, that is when our suffering begins. And just look back and think about your own experiences. That's so true. So, service. Service unto Bhagavan. That's the way to actually be happy. And that's the ultimate conclusion of our conception.
Devotion also we strive to enjoy something.
So,
in devotional service also we want to enjoy.
no. In devotional service we want to serve, and enjoyment is a byproduct. Whether we enjoy or not.
Sometimes the mood is I want to get enjoyment.
So that's the impurity in our devotional service, which we have to gradually, through the process, remove, and our desire becomes more and more to serve, to give. And I'm sure you see progress in that mood over time. As you spend time with devotees, you hear, you chant, and when you serve, then that desire to serve, the purity of the service increases. So the degree to which this is for me, to that degree is so pure. Everything for Krishna, nothing for me. Okay, it's 9:30. Thank you so much to everyone for your kind attention. I wish you all a wonderful Krishna conscious day. And thank you to one of my group allies for welcoming us here in Boston again. This is the second visit, and I'm still inspired. It's very nice. Nice devotees, wonderful mood. ग्रंथ राजमल भागवतम की
जय।
श्री श्री राधा गोपी वल्लभ की
जय।
कृष्ण की गौरंगाई की श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय।
ISKCON Boston की विद्याय गोकर्ण
Grace Anand Chaitanya Prabhu ki.
गौर भक्तवृंद की
Thank you, Prabhu, for the wonderful. Looks like spending so much time with you, but you are leaving.
Go to the West Coast. We're flying to Portland tomorrow.
Are you there?
How long have you been in the US?
7 weeks. To January, early January.
All important.
No, we'll go all the way down the West Coast. So we'll start in Portland, we'll go up to Vancouver, and then down the West Coast.
LA, San Diego?
Yes.
Great, that's my hometown. I'll be there next
Oh, really?
month.
Oh, you'll be there?
Yeah, anything you need while you're there, please, I can drive you places.
Very kind, thank you. Yeah, and then we'll go to Dallas, 50 hour Kirtan in Dallas.
Wow,
at the end of the
very
year.
Oh, 31st.
Yeah, end of the year, like 29, 30, 31, something.
Some devotees from here are going, so you might see some.
So really
some
familiar
stuff
faces.
on them.
Yeah. So I know the beach is 50 hour Kirtan before. Texas is, America's big, and then Texas is bigger.